I can still hear that sound, that sharp, dry crack, the one that changed everything. My wife screamed, clutching her arm, 8 months pregnant, while 2 fake HOA officers stood on my porch like they owned the place. They broke her arm over a rule they made up, Section 14C. That's when something inside me snapped, and I stopped caring about their fake authority or their plastic badges. That day started like any other. I'd just come home from a long shift, tired but ready for a quiet evening. We lived in this small neighborhood on the edge of Georgia, quiet, clean, full of retired couples and people who took their lawns a little too seriously. I didn't mind the HOA much. They'd sent a few warning letters before about leaving the trash bins out too long, but nothing serious. At least not until that evening. I parked the truck and got out, but before I even hit the steps, I noticed something was wrong. The porch mat. It wasn't ours. The one Emma picked out years ago from the farmer's market, the one that said, "Home Sweet Chaos Gone," replaced with a brand new mat that read, "Order Restored." Those words hit me like a slap. Clean, blocky letters, like a slogan for a dictatorship. Through the front window, I saw 2 guys sitting in my living room like they'd been invited. One was lounging in my recliner, Emma's dad's old chair, munching on crackers straight from the box. The other scrolled on his phone like he was waiting for a table at a restaurant. And there was Emma on the porch steps trying to calm our dog Bruno, who was barking his head off. She looked up at me with that tired smile, the one that said, "Don't start." I didn't even get a word out before I heard a voice from behind me. "You're in violation of Section 14C. Immediate compliance required." I turned around. 2 men stood by a gray Crown Victoria. No plates, just a plastic light on top, blinking like a toy. They wore cheap polo shirts with HOA enforcement printed on the chest cargo pants and fake walkie-talkies clipped to their belts. No IDs, no badges. Just smug faces that screamed entitlement. The skinny one held what looked like a baton wrapped in black tape. The taller guy had zip ties hanging off his belt. "Leash that dog or it's a fine," the skinny one said flatly. Emma stood shielding her belly. Bruno growled, his whole body trembling. I stepped between them, keeping my voice low but firm. "Who the hell are you?" The guy didn't answer. He lunged forward and grabbed Emma's arm, and then came that awful sound. Crack. Quiet, but final. Her scream tore through me. Not just from pain, it was the sound of shock, of betrayal. I was already moving before I realized it, shoving myself between her and them, my hands shaking my chest, burning. "What the hell did you just do?" The skinny one sneered. Non-compliance with HOA enforcement protocol, he said, like that justified it. Emma cradled her arm, eyes wide, gasping, her belly tightening from the stress. Bruno barked louder, losing control. I reached for my phone, half thinking to record, half thinking to call 911. Before the camera even loaded, the guy swung his baton down and hit my wrist. The phone flew into the bushes. "Violation of Section 38B, unauthorized recording of an HOA officer," he barked. I stared at him, stunned. "You made that up," I said, voice shaking with rage. Emma was crying, trying to breathe. I saw her belly move, our son kicking from inside, reacting to the chaos. And that's when everything went dark inside me. I looked at the guy dead in the eyes. "You touch her again, you'll lose that hand." He smirked like I was bluffing. The taller one stepped closer, spitting out nonsense about lawn regulations and mailbox replacements. His tone, his arrogance, it was rehearsed. They'd done this before. Then he pulled open their trunk. Inside plastic cuffs, a clipboard, more fake gear. "You're under arrest," the skinny one said, waving his baton lazily. "On your knees." I didn't move. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, my breath sharp. I raised my hand slowly, not to surrender, to think. My right hand dipped beneath my jacket, and my fingers found the cold steel of my Glock 19. They froze the second they saw it. "I don't care what that fake badge says," I told them, my voice low. "You broke my wife's arm. She's pregnant. You think this is a game?" The skinny one laughed. That sound, that mocking little laugh, was the last thing he did before the world tilted. The first shot went straight into the air. A warning, loud enough to make the clouds flinch. The second hit his thigh. He dropped screaming, clutching his leg. The taller one turned to run, but I grabbed his shoulder and threw him down hard onto the gravel. Bruno lunged, clamping down on his calf. It was chaos, yelling dust, the smell of gunpowder. But I didn't shoot again. I didn't have to. I didn't want to kill them. I just wanted them to stop. By the time the real sirens came, the deep rolling kind that make your heart skip, I was kneeling beside Emma, tying my torn shirt around her arm to stop the bleeding. Her face was pale, but her eyes were burning. "Tell them the truth," she whispered. "Don't hide." I nodded, but deep down I already knew I wasn't going to tell them everything. Just enough. The sheriff's Tahoe pulled up, lights cutting through the dusk. Real cops this time, hands on their belts, eyes scanning. I laid the Glock on the ground, raised my hands, and said clearly, "They're not officers. No warrant. No ID. They attacked my wife. They cuffed me anyway. Procedure, they said." Fine. I didn't argue. But 20 minutes later, dispatch came through. Those two weren't HOA. One had a warrant for extortion. The other was wanted in another county for impersonating an officer. The cuffs came off. 3 weeks later, I sat in court wearing the same boots from that day, not to make a statement, but to remind myself who I was when everything fell apart. The two fake enforcers sat shackled in orange jumpsuits, whispering to their lawyer, who called it a misunderstanding. The prosecution rolled the footage, the doorbell cam. The whole thing played out on a screen for the jury. Emma's scream, the hit, the chaos, the gunfire. Every lie they tried to spin collapsed under the sound of that single crack, her arm breaking. The judge, a woman who looked like she'd seen decades of people lying to her face, didn't even blink. "Guilty," she said, gavel-hitting, once echoing through the room like a final verdict on arrogance itself. I didn't smile. I didn't feel victory. I just sat there holding Emma's good hand, the one not wrapped in bandages, while she stared straight ahead, unflinching. Later, when we got home, I sat alone on that same porch. The order-restored mat was gone, replaced again with ours. The old one. Home sweet chaos. It was dirty, a little torn, but it was ours. For a long time I kept thinking about that night, about how close I came to crossing a line I couldn't come back from. How easy it is for people with fake power or real power to make you feel small. How one wrong moment can decide who you become. I thought about giving up, about selling the house, leaving that neighborhood, pretending it never happened. I felt broken, exhausted, ashamed. I kept asking myself if I went too far. But then I looked at Emma, at the way she held herself even with her arm in a sling, at Bruno lying protectively at her feet, at the quiet strength in her eyes when she said, "We're still here." And that was it. That was the reason I didn't walk away. Because you can rebuild broken things. Arms, trust, even faith in yourself, but only if you refuse to let fear define you. Justice didn't happen in that courtroom. It happened the moment I decided to stand my ground, not with rage, but with truth. And if there's one thing I've learned since that night, it's this. Badges can lie, power can pretend. But the truth doesn't need permission to exist.